This is the Farm RPG Podcast with your host,
Say my name right, Bones. I've got faith in you.
Bhelogan.
Almost. Try that again.
Bhelogan.
No, that's worse. You're going the wrong direction.
Blue bun.
Last try. This is it. I'm warning you.
Blogna.
That's it. You're fired. Get out of here. In this week's episode of the Farm RPG Podcast, we kick things off with a player spotlight interviewing a couple who play together, subaroob and Bufallogal. Following that, I sit down with coderanger in a mechanics deep dive to discuss skill power leveling. Lastly, to wrap things up, Auggie and I talk with TempleOfStones in a staff spotlight. Enjoy. We have a very special player spotlight today. It's a 2-for-1, and this time it's not two moderators. I am left unsupervised, but I've got two players we're talking today, subaroob and Bufallogal.
Hi.
Hi.
Glad to have you two on the show. Now, my understanding is that subaroob is the boyfriend, Bufallogal is the girlfriend, and you guys like to play together.
Yes, that's true. You got it.
So I checked your start dates. Subaroob, you started playing October 9th, and Bufallogal was about December 8th. Mm-hmm. And the real question is, what was the secret sauce, subaroob, to get your girlfriend to play this game with you?
I've always been a pretty big fan of incremental games, and as I'm sure you know, that's a pretty niche genre that not a lot of people have any interest in. So I think it was just convincing her that it wasn't another one of those.
Yeah, I think I was a little skeptical because I viewed it as, you know, like Farmville or just one of those other like mobile games that I've never been into. But I think at one point he sat me down and was like, well, you're going to make an account and you're going to grow peppers and just go from there. And I didn't expect to keep playing, but I couldn't stop. So
growing peppers, that's the gateway drug.
Yeah.
Just try some peppers.
It's like, oh, this is going so fast. All of a sudden I have so many peppers. This is great.
Awesome. So Bufallogal, I'm assuming then that's how you learned about the game, was your husband tricking you into growing some peppers, and you've been stuck here ever since.
Yep. Various jails along the way.
Or boyfriend. I don't know what it said, but yeah. Subaroob, how did you learn about the game, about Farm RPG?
I actually learned about it on the Besties podcast. I was mentioned on there probably on October 9th, if that was my start date. That's funny, actually. I was running a bar at the time, and as soon as I heard it mentioned on the podcast, I downloaded it, and I swear I was at work 2 or 3 hours later than I should have been because I couldn't stop playing instead of cleaning.
That's awesome. I think it hasn't been released yet, but I've got another player that we interviewed that's where they found about it as well, was the Besties podcast.
Yeah, most of their recommendations have been pretty successful for me, so I couldn't say no to a free option.
That's awesome. I mostly know the McElroys from the Adventure Zone podcast.
Oh yeah, us too.
Yeah, we're big fans.
So now that you've been playing for a couple months each, let's start with subaroob. In one sentence, how would you describe Farm RPG?
All right, I've been thinking about this all day. What I came up with was an incremental adjacent text-based farming-themed game about growing corn forever while engaging in group therapy with other people who are growing corn forever.
Corn group therapy.
That's exactly right. That'd be my 3-word description.
That's awesome. I like it. I haven't heard that one yet, but I think it's apt. Bufallogal, how would you describe Farm RPG in one sentence?
Yeah, I would say it's a great way to feel like you're accomplishing something each day without the stress of actually doing it in the real world.
Okay, I like that. So it's something that gives you a sense of accomplishment even if you didn't get out of bed.
Oh yeah, it feels great to like move things along, but you know, you don't actually have to worry too much about what's going on.
Now, if you're stuck in corn jail, does it really feel like you're moving?
It didn't for a long time, but the moment that I got out of corn jail, it was a whole new world, and I feel like I'd really conquered something. So, and in a way, it probably gives me a little more like motivation to accomplish things in the real world, hopefully. Some days more than others.
That's fantastic. So in addition to feeling accomplished, maybe you can tell us, Bufallogal, where did your Farm RPG username come from?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Like American bison are my favorite animals. I've just always really been kind of obsessed with them. So it's just a little reference to my favorite animal and the like old song, Buffalo Gals, Won't You Come Out Tonight?
That's awesome. Have you ever had a buffalo burger?
I have, yes. In South Dakota when we like saw a bunch of buffaloes and then we went and ate them, which is kind of sad, but it's fine.
It's all right if your favorite animal is something you like to eat too on occasion.
Oh yeah, they're great.
We love our chickens and cows and pigs. But those cows and pigs get slaughtered quite a bit
That's true.
in game anyway. Subaroob, where did your username come from?
I guess mine's a little bit longer story. Well, my first name is Rob, and way back in high school, I misspelled it once on something that I was handing in, and the teacher made it into a very public joke, and it just kind of stuck. Later on, I bought a Subaru and just mashed them together.
So it does come from the car.
It does, yeah. That half does.
Awesome. I was basing that when I was guessing how to say your username. It's like, I don't know how to say the car name.
You nailed it.
Yeah, it's great. His license plate for the Subaru is actually Roob, Roob. So it's quite literally the Subaroob.
There you go. Those vanity plates make it easy to find your car. If you're one of them that depends on knowing the license plate, I guess. Or if you have to remember your license plate, which, I don't know, maybe most people don't have to do that very often. I get asked it a lot for work when you're visiting places. Which car was yours? What's your license plate?
Definitely makes it easier.
Well, this next question I'll leave as a free-for-all for both of you to answer together or in whatever order you like. But besides farm RPGs, what kind of games do you guys like to play?
Digitally, I play a lot of No Man's Sky and DayZ are probably the two biggest ones. But I kind of jump around and try as much as I can. I guess on a tabletop, we actually just wrapped up the first seasonal box set for Pandemic. We play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons too when time allows.
Yeah, and I also just started playing some No Man's Sky with Subaru, which is fun. I also really like story slow quest games like Cozy Grove, Spiritfarer, Coffee Talk, Strange Horticulture, and I also just love the gameplay in Far Cry.
All right, cool. Is those primarily PC or console that you play those?
I mostly play on either PC or Switch for some of the smaller ones.
Yeah, and I'm pretty stuck on PC myself.
Nothing wrong with that. I don't have a console in my house other than my Raspberry Pi emulator.
Yeah, once you go PC, it's kind of hard to go back.
Yeah.
As long as you aren't trying to buy a graphics card right now, that's generally the case.
Yeah, both of our setups are a little out of date because of that, but they get the job done.
All right, let's start this next question with you, Subaru. What's one thing that you wish the farm RPG community knew?
Honestly, just that the community is the reason this game is what it is. And I mean, that's not to discount any of all of the hard work that, Firestream or any of the staff members put in. But at the end of the day, without the community, without chat being what it is, I think the game would be a little flat. And so I guess that's kind of a two-part thing that I hope people know is first that people should feel good about contributing to what is by far the least toxic community in an online game I've ever been a part of. And it's also kind of a call to action to keep it up, to keep being that wholesome and supporting each other and just being great overall.
Awesome. That's a great answer. The community really is such a big part of the game. I mean, for me, it's been this way with all of Firestream games in the past. It was community first, game was second. It was fun, but that wasn't really the reason I was logging in, other than to just do something in common with everybody else I was hanging out with.
Exactly. I like phrasing it like that. Just give you something to do that everybody else is also doing.
Bufallogal, what's one thing you wish the farm RPG community knew?
Yeah, a little more specific, but I think if you let it, manual fishing will really grow on you. I feel like I just hit a point where I'm not angry every time I have to try and catch a gold flyer. It feels, and I'm really, really close to completing. I think it's Find a Way with a bunch of goldfish, and I'm just so excited. So if you let it, it will bring a great sense of accomplishment to yourself.
They said it's going to grow on you. It's moved to the point where you just don't absolutely disdain it. So it doesn't sound like it's moved into positive territory yet.
But it's grown on me. It's grown to a neutral place.
Become neutral. All right. Well, besides the fact that you don't loathe manual fishing anymore, Bufallogal, can you tell us an interesting fact about yourself.
Yeah. When I was 8 years old, I made a full PowerPoint presentation and speech to try and convince my parents to take me to Disney World, complete with like budgeting, timelines, and my very own clip art. And it worked. I got to go to Disney World.
Wow.
What she's failing to mention is that her parents had already planned to take the family to Disney World. She just had good timing.
No, it's a better story to leave that out.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Feel free to edit that out.
At the time I made the PowerPoint presentation, I did not know that that was a plan, so it was very high stakes for me.
Serious business. Yep. Awesome. Subaroob, what's an interesting fact about yourself you could share with us?
Sure. Actually, the aforementioned Subaru, which I didn't expect to talk about so much, I flew across the country to buy it, and the last leg of the flight was this tiny 5-seat propeller plane from Boston to Bar Harbor, Maine, and one of the other 3 passengers on that plane was Stephen King, which I think is pretty neat.
You didn't take that as a bad omen that something scary was going to happen at all?
I didn't notice till we were in the air, so I kind of just held my breath and went with it. But once we hit the ground, it was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Been on a plane ride with Stephen King. I think probably most of us, if we'd been in that situation, probably wouldn't even realize it. Most people are flying commercial. You get so many people on there, you don't know who's who half the time.
Yeah, it was lucky. It was a very small plane, and well, he's a pretty distinctive looking person, so it worked out.
All right, well, that's everything on our standard questionnaire. But since we've got the two of you together and you both play Farm RPG, maybe you can give us a little bit of a scoop on how that works. Are you competitive with each other in getting things done? Do you work together? Or do you just keep it to yourself and then brag in the evening about what you got done?
I would say there's a lot of bragging going on, whether it's like texting each other kind of all hours of the day. We'll say like, hey, I just got this. It's hard to be competitive since I'm not as far along in the like storyline, I guess. But there's been a lot of, we've helped each other out with stuff in mailboxes a couple times. But also there's a lot of just like, sending a singular worm to his mailbox at a random time and just let him know I'm thinking about him.
How cute. You worm bomb him.
Yeah.
It's been great having her, because with the new chore system with chores that ask you to mail a certain number of items, it makes it easy to have a go-to to dump some acorns real quick and complete my chore.
Yeah, I feel guilty with those. I always just go to the giveaway, find some name of someone who's asking for something. It's like, I don't care what you asked for. I'm giving you stuff because
yeah,
I got chores to do.
I'm embarrassed to admit it, but that's actually something I didn't even think about, is using giveaway for that. That's a way more productive way to complete those.
Instead of just like randomly sending me acorns.
Instead of just borderline harassing my wife. Yeah, that's...
All right, cool. Well, I don't know many other couples that play together. I know several staff members have tried to get their significant others to play to limiting degrees of success. I haven't been able to get my kids to play.
Oh, man.
At all, other than contributing artwork and music, because my son that we did the interview with Ed Bush is into that a lot.
Oh, that's sweet.
Well, cool. Before we wrap up then, is there anything that either of you'd like to ask me while you've got me on the air? Anything you're dying to know?
Yeah, I guess my only question, and do you run other podcasts? Is this your first foray into audio work? Because I've been really impressed with the podcast so far.
Oh, thanks. So this is the first one where I've produced. I have been a guest a number of times over the last couple of years on the RPG Crossing podcast, which is a play-by-post website for Dungeons and Dragons and those kind of things. I moderate over there as well.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And I also have a group of friends that from RPG Crossing, where we've been trying to do a live play Dungeons and Dragons podcast for the last, I know we started over the summer, but all these guys are, my similar situation, older in life, have jobs. There's always things coming up. And so we end up recording on our weekly schedule, maybe once a month, if even that.
Yeah.
So this was my first foray into audioing. I do my YouTube channel. So I've got
Sure.
a little bit of experience from that, working with audio and video. But no, I definitely had to learn a lot for the podcast. It's a different animal.
Yeah, well, we just really appreciate you doing it. I think it's an excellent addition to the game, and it's been a lot of fun to listen to so far. We're not completely caught up, but been enjoying it a lot.
All right. Yeah. New episodes are dropping every Tuesday at 5 a.m. server time.
Awesome.
That's the plan.
Great.
Very nice.
Cool. And I hope to hear if you do get that actual play podcast going up. I'd love to give it a listen.
All right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. This is another deep dive segment. I'm your host, Bhelogan, and with me again is coderanger.
Thanks for having me.
This segment, we're going to talk about power leveling your skills. So previously we did a deep dive on the different skills and how you get experience in them. But power leveling is one of those things that, really dedicated gamers always try to figure out how to do just for fun, see what they can min-max out of the system. So why don't we start with just an overview of what power leveling actually is in Farm RPG?
Yeah, so power leveling is just trying to maximize your XP gains, even sometimes at the cost of silver profits, but you want to get up either to, a specific level threshold or all the way up to max level of 99 as quickly as possible, either just for your own fun or because you're waiting to unlock a new quest, a new pet, a new something. Power leveling works a little bit differently for each of the 4 skills. We can sort of cover them in order. Farming is the sort of simplest because it's also one of the hardest ones to talk about power leveling for. Just kind of, there's only one real thing. Normally, you're sort of just playing the game. You get some XP from planting and harvesting crops, but it's really not going to be all that much. The XP from that is pretty minimal. Most of the bulk XP from farming comes from crop rows and farm buildings, especially the later ones. If you're just sort of playing the game normally and you're not really thinking too much about leveling up farming, you usually get up to about low 80s, 82 to 85 without thinking too much about it. That's sort of the point that most players get, and they realize, okay, I really want to level up on my farming skill. So from that, there's usually only one last big source of XP, and that's your 1 billion silver crop row, the 9th crop row.
Right.
So that'll get you from mid 80s up to low 90s. Usually somewhere you'll go from, if you're at about 85, you'll get to somewhere around 94. We talked about last time that crop rows and crop buildings do not get any benefit from the XP multiplier perks, but what they do get a benefit from is special events. So if there's a holiday or an XP weekend that has a 20% XP boost, those do apply. So this raises a quandary. So we want to power level our farming. We really want to buy that 1 billion row. That's a billion XP. That'll get us up a whole bunch of levels. 1 billion XP is halfway to level 99 all on its own. So should we do that immediately upon getting our first billion silver is a common question for new players. And the answer is maybe. So if you are currently somewhere in the mid 80s, so you would jump up a little bit over 90 when you get that crop row, what we have to ask is it worth missing the 200 million bonus XP you would get if you waited to do that for a special event? And this is where we have to talk about power leveling and grape juice. If you heard the previous segment on vineyards and wine, we talked a little bit about using grape juice for power leveling XP. This is most common with the longer growing crops, usually either sunflowers if you are below 90 or beets if you're above 90. You'll plant a full field of them, you'll use grape juice, you'll harvest them, and you'll do that again for as many grape juices you can use per day, which is 1 by default, 2 with a perk, and more with Patreon support. I'm only going to really talk about using 2 per day. So if you're a Patreon user, maybe this is a little bit off for you, but same general idea. So the difference between using grape juice on 8 rows of sunflowers versus 9 rows of beets. So once you get that 1 billion crop row, you could save up for your 10 billion or even 100 billion crop row, but those are going to take most people a good while. So we don't really usually consider those power leveling. Those are more for sort of late game. I want to do a prestige thing. And you, I believe, get a merit badge achievement for buying your 11th 100 billion crop row. But after that 1 billion crop row, usually you're left with, I just need to do beets and grape juice every day. And that gives me a little bit more XP. That'll take a little while. But that means that if you do the 1 billion crop row early and skip out on that 200 million XP, that means that you sort of get more XP every day from doing beets instead of sunflowers, from doing 9 rows of beets instead of 8 rows of sunflowers. So that difference is 1.3 million XP per day. That means that if you're doing 2 grape juice per day, you get 2.6 million extra XP per day. Doing out all the division, that means that if there is going to be a special event within 75 days, that it is actually better to hold off on your crop row until the special event. You will actually get more by waiting and getting the 200 million bonus from the plus 20% XP. And as painful as it is, there is usually going to be a special event. We can't say for sure. They're up to Firestream, but usually we have an XP weekend or a holiday event more frequently than every 75 days, at least in my experience these days. So as painful as it is often better for power leveling, at least, to wait and hold off on your 9th crop row. If you have XP multipliers, you do get extra XP from the crop harvest that at plus 30%, that drags it all the way down to 57 days, which is a little less. But we do usually still have an event more frequently than every 57 days, at least lately.
They usually line up with the major American holidays or large player number count milestones.
Yeah.
For when we have those events. But I love that we have options for doing that, because before we had XP weekends, before we had grape juice and even beets and sunflowers, there's really only one way to get to level 99 in farming, and that was to buy the 10 billion crop row.
Yep. That's it takes substantially less time these days, which is quite nice.
It is a lot faster, yeah. Especially endgame, the silver growth is drastically more than it used to be. Just to give a quick glimpse into that, if we look back, I think it was in June. If I go into the game and look in my bank history, in your bank history, it shows how much interest you've earned every day. And let me just pull it up really quick here. All right. Yeah, it was the 30th of June. I had 2 billion silver in the bank and I earned 80 million in interest. And that caused the great economic overhaul where we had caps put on everything, how much interest you could earn in the bank. And nowadays you look at it and it's like, $500,000 or $500 million of silver of passive income for your end game is pretty normal. All right, completely unrelated to power farming, but a fun tidbit on that and how the game's changed with being able to power level that skill. I was going to ask about fishing. Let's move on to fishing and how you would power level that skill.
Yeah, so fishing and exploring, which we'll get into a little later, are a bit on the simpler side. There's no real special anything. There's no way to get XP other than do a lot of fishing. For fishing, that's usually going to mean nets, and it's usually going to mean high-level zones. So Lake Minerva gets substantially more. It's about 5x the previous zone, being Vast Ocean. And Large Island is 8,000, so about 2.5 times Lake Minerva per fish. Really, if you want to power level it, you get more raptors if that's an option. You explore in the forest for antlers. You make a whole lot of fishing nets, and you just spam fishing nets at your highest unlocked area. Conveniently, if you have Minerva or Large Island, this is also really good for making silver profit. So pulling a bit of double duty there.
Yeah, the silver's fun to look at. I think because of when they were introduced, most of us had hit level 99 before or right after Lake Minerva was launched. And do you see players unlocking all those areas before they hit 99 more often or not now? Or are they needing Large Island to finish getting there?
Yeah, no, most people unlock those well before they hit 99. Usually pretty soon after the quests start unlocking. The runestones are annoying, but they don't take that long these days. And the islands are hard to catch. Questline for Large Island is actually relatively easy, at least compared to Parts Unknown for Whispering Creek.
All right, so you mentioned exploring was pretty straightforward as well.
Yeah, so exploring, again, you just have to click or tap a whole lot. In this case, there is only one place, and it is Whispering Creek. The nearest second for XP is Ember Lagoon, which is 53 XP per explorer. This is before there's 125 XP bonus per zone standard. We talked about that last time. Feel free to go back to that. I believe it's episode 5. But just looking at the item-dependent parts, Ember Lagoon is about 53 per explorer, and Whispering Creek is 182 per explorer, which is not even close. So really, you just go to Whispering Creek and you click or tap a whole lot of times. It's not particularly fun for a lot of people, but as a bonus, you can also get a lot of raptor eggs that way. So really, if you do this, especially before you're interested in fishing, either for XP or profit a whole lot, having a lot of raptors is really useful for high fishing profits. So call it, again, doing double duty. In this case, you're not getting silver, but you are getting the eventual passive source of a lot of silver. When you're power leveling, you're exploring. Exploring is generally the hardest, in my experience, for basically everyone. It's usually the last one that people will hit 99 on. So if you're hitting sort of the mid to late game and you're not sure if you want to get any more of those XP perks, usually worry about exploring the most. It's the one that's going to most need that extra 10%. And then finally, we've got crafting.
Crafting. Yeah. And crafting, I feel like, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like crafting used to be easier because you used to get experience for buying auto crafter slots, which isn't a thing in the game anymore.
Yep. I definitely benefited a whole bunch from that. It's not the hardest. Like I said, exploring is the slowest for most people, but it's in the middle. Fortunately, it's relatively well understood what the overall power leveling strategies are. There are certain items that you can make that are over the average power curve for experience. Some of those are the standard ones that you use for making a lot of silver. Sturdy shields early on, fancy pipes in the mid game, and lanterns in the sort of early late game. And then there's also, especially once you start bulk exploring in Whispering Creek to power level that up to 99, you get a lot of oak. And oak is very useful for some of the late game crafting stuff. Fancy drums use a lot of oak. They don't make a lot of silver, they don't make a lot of XP, but they do make a lot of silver. But if you are going to be bulk exploring a ton in Whispering Creek, you will get so much oak that they're still a pretty good source. If you want to go just for crafting XP, you're not worried about exploring, or you've already got that up pretty high. Then some of the other late game crafting items are usually better. I believe sturdy bows are currently the best. So if you're doing sturdy bows and garnet rings, that'll, I believe, give you the best average XP currently.
Currently, yeah. Prone to change, right? So we'll see if we have any updates we have to make to this.
Even by the time this is released, Firestream may have ruined all of our painstaking analysis. It's just the way video games go, and we love it.
That's part of what makes the analysis fun, is you spend a lot of time, dig in, figure it out, get the best method, and then something changes and you have to start over again.
So that's really the 4 ways. So a quick review: farming, wait to buy your 1 billion crop row until there's a special event, and otherwise use grape juice every day as much as you can on either sunflowers or beets. Fishing, just cast a lot of nets in your highest unlocked zone. Exploring, do a lot of exploring in Whispering Creek. And crafting, make a lot of high-end crafting materials, usually sturdy bows.
Awesome. Thank you so much, coderanger, for taking some time to talk to us about power leveling, what it is, and how it works in Farm RPG.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
Hey everybody, today we have a super exciting segment for you. We are going to be talking about the terms of service. If you're not sure what that is, well, let's take it and find out. Just kidding. I've got my co-host with me today, Auggie.
Hello, good morning.
And for the staff spotlight, we are talking to TempleOfStones.
Howdy, farmers.
All right, TOS, as we call you for short. I think, knowing your history a little bit, you probably learned about Farm RPG in a similar manner to how I did. But let's go ahead and hear your story. How did you learn about Farm RPG and what convinced you to come play?
Yeah, that's right. I was actually here from day one, all the way in May. I think it was May 15th, and it was, I guess, there was like this first wave of players there, or maybe the second one. I know that some of the FS's friends probably got a little earlier on, but when it came for me, I was a player of Titan Conquest for a while, quite active there, but basically one day there just was a banner out of the blue, much like we have our chat on Farm RPG. We have banners, for example, when there's some problems in the game or something like that. They just popped up a banner. Oh, by the way, there's a new game that I just made. And everyone was like, ooh, cool. So a lot of people clicked in. But interesting tidbit about that, it's sort of a known history, but it was a Farm RPG actually was supposed to be a feature in Titan Conquest, or like an expansion to build your own settlement. I think it was supposed to be called Settlements or something like that. But as FS was programming it, he probably figured out that there's no way these games are anything near what they should be probably together. In my opinion, it was a good call, because we have seen how much Farm RPG is growing with all the new stuff coming in basically every other day or every week. So imagine a tapping game like Titan Conquest, but also planting beets for some reason and slaughtering cows just doesn't seem like a very good match. So I guess that was a pretty good decision. But yeah, back to the topic. First day, just clicked through, and of course the game was pretty bare bones back then. If I'm being honest, it was nothing like what it is now with all the fancy quest lines and pads and automatic crafting. It was just a bunch of buttons and lots of promised features for the future. But I stuck around, and I'm happy to. It's really a cool game.
That's really cool. I didn't know that the original plan was to have it be kind of added on to Titan Conquest, which I've never played because I'm not very competitive. But that's just a really cool fun fact.
Yeah, I dig into it a little bit in an episode that will have been released when this segment comes out, I think, with Amberlin. He asked me about it, and we dug into, it was supposed to be settlements. And I will say, for the Titan Conquest players, for a lot of them, that wasn't super popular to spin it off in their own game, to its own game. They were really looking forward to having more content there in Titan Conquest. But like you said, Temple of Stones, it was thematically, as far as rewards and everything else, it really fit to spin it off in its own game. And it appeals to a market, I think, that's a lot wider than Titan Conquest did, and has brought in a lot of new players and different type of players, and probably would have other played the other game.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think, at least I like to think, that these two games are pretty much, they're similar in some ways, but they are very, like, let's say, mentality-wise, very different. Whereas basically the most fun you can have in Titan Conquest is basically battle it out with other players. There's this arena where you have these, let's say, images of other players that you can defeat, as well as the monthly conquest against other clans. While in Farm RPG, everyone's sort of looking out for each other, right? You gift stuff to other people, you give hands, whereas Titan Conquest is just pretty strong on competition, which makes it fun, but it just doesn't seem very compatible with how Farm RPG is rolling and what makes it kind of fun to be around in.
Not competitive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a complete opposite in a way.
Well, with that, if you had one sentence, how would you describe Farm RPG?
Yeah, there's one thing that's been really bugging me for a while now, and that's the About page. I don't know if you guys check it a lot, but there's this one sentence, basically, which was probably written by Firestream at some point, and I'm going to read it out for you. It says, "This is a simple, mobile-friendly farming RPG game where you start a farm, fish, craft, and explore the world of the game. So I guess I would use my own sentence to describe it as a complete lie. So first of all, this game is not simple. Come on, like you have seen all the Excel sheets calculating wine prices, when to slaughter your pigs, how to maximize, like basically some people do basically speedrunning to all 99s. So good luck with the simple. I mean, of course you can play the simple, but then again, most people don't really. There's also no mention of the crazy lore that built up over the months. And just to recap, for some of you who sort of just click through, don't really read the quests and stuff like that.
Bhelogan.
Hey, quit making fun of me. Quit making fun of me.
I highlighted for myself here, we have a cult of a pirate cannibal. Then we have labor camps and a literal dragon. Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface of what's going on in this game. Also,
And I added in a magical talking rabbit.
I know, right? That would be my fourth point. Last but not least, and I think it's important to be honest with the players who are reading about their game for the first time, get ready for your hurting wrist and the carpal tunnel syndrome.
There's plenty of clicking.
Definitely. I mean, but it's not as bad on mobile, I don't think. And I think that's well, I have a laptop, so I have a mouse, but like my laptop sits on my lap, so it's kind of weird so I just use my phone most of the time.
But it's just gotten so much better over the time, you know. Like my other, let's say, veterans of the game will know just how bad it was in the beginning, right? So now where we are at, you can click once and you get instantly like 1,000 nets. That's beautiful. Yeah, like now it's okay. You have to click a little bit or tap a little bit to explore or to cast some nets, but that's really mostly it. You know, it used to be so much worse.
When you had to like craft one at a time, and the auto crafters would take like the whole day to make your twine.
Yeah. And still, the game was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like still, everyone was still kept playing. Now it's just sort of like a cherry on the top. Everything's just gotten so much smoother and better. But you know, some of us who's been there for a while, we still have our trauma from the past.
Man, even before Autocrafter, and when you could still buy boards, we just make wooden shields all day long.
I know. Like back then, if you had a mastery in something, that was literally blood and sweat poured into it.
Yeah, and I think I might have talked about it in another previous episode, but like as soon as item mastery was a thing, like I hit the ground running with it. And obviously, like I prioritize quests, but otherwise I'm always doing item mastery. So like everybody's doing it now, so it's a little harder. But I would always pick something that not a lot of other people were working on so that I could kind of, you know, trade for those things and everyone would have it.
Yeah.
And nobody would be like, nah, give me 300 orange juice for feathers. But now it's like everybody's doing item mastery and everybody needs everything all the time. So it's fine.
We're all hoarders.
I think, you know what? I think we should do a shout out here to some of the absolutely crazy people out there who have already reached the merit badge, the 100 grandmasteries. It's absolutely crazy to me. I like to think I play the game quite a lot, but I'm nowhere near that.
I'm also nowhere near that, but I think it's because I spent so much time trying to get my regular masteries to 150, and I finally did it.
What?
And I think at the time of recording, I think I'm around 34, 35 grand masteries. I'm going to check.
Hold on, there are 150 items in the game?
There's
because I'm at like 102.
There's more.
That's impressive.
Yeah, there's some crazy gamers out there that like to focus on the mastery over other things. Let's talk a little bit about your username, TempleOfStones, because that has changed over time as well. Why don't you give us a little bit of history of your username and how we came to what it is today?
It's quite a story, and I have to say one thing. I also administer a bunch of Discord servers, and I'm pretty notorious for changing my name every like 2 weeks or so. So people know me by my profile picture, but not by my name. Here, of course, I need to sort of keep it locked down because there's no option Farm RPG to really change your nickname just like regularly. You have to reach out to one of the staff, and that's totally cool. However, on Titan Conquest, where I originally come from, it was not like that. You could really change your nickname more regularly than that. And basically, my story in Titan Conquest begins all the way in like 2 years ago or something, I guess. I was just browsing for a new incremental game to play, and I found this thread on Reddit, on like Android gaming subreddit. It's not a very big subreddit or anything like that. And there was just like this weekly thread, and it was like, what are you playing right now? And I remember that the most upvoted comment was Titan Conquest. And I'm like, it was like so much upvotes, and I'm like, okay, weird, never heard of that, but I should probably give it a shot. And so the first thing that greets you if you open Titan Conquest is a login screen. You can't just play without having an account. So I tried putting my usual nicknames in and nothing worked. So I was getting a little pissed off. So I was thinking at the time, and I have a lot of hobbies, like small projects, and I also write short stories. And what I was writing at the time, it was sort of like a horror story, sort of. And the general idea was that, like, you live your normal life, but you encounter strange things. So what is so strange enough that you would call it a paranormal, basically? So, and in this particular short story, this guy was visiting his friend, and there were scratches on the wall everywhere. You couldn't explain, and nobody could explain where they came from. But so the chapter was called House of Scratches. And I was thinking maybe I should put that in as a nickname, because I couldn't think of anything better at the time. But I thought it sounded kind of strange, and people would probably think I'm some kind of a weirdo. So I thought rat was a cool animal, so I put House of Rats. And that was my first ever username with the logic of something of something. And this nickname sort of evolved over time. I was a guild master over at Titan Conquest, and I remember my guildies were really into roleplay. And one guy in particular, he would just like roleplay, similarly like we have in Farm RPG the /me command, just like role playing, and you basically make like these crazy stories about what's happening in the clan. And basically, at some point, he decided he would do like a coronation on me, and I remember I changed my nickname to King of Rats, and we renamed the whole guild to Styx Rats because of that. And when finally it was the 15th May, I hopped over to Farm RPG, but obviously I was not a king of anything because there were no clans. So I think I went back to something like Farm of Rats. So at least like the off rats logic is maintained, and I kept that particular nickname for a while. But sort of as the meta of the game evolved a little bit, I would say. I somehow thought it would be funny to role play as like a priest of a temple that is just worshipping stones, because you need stones to craft so many items in the game. Like, you might not notice late game, but it quickly becomes apparent that you just are missing stones to craft gems and bottles and glass orbs and everything else. So I was just sort of role-playing in the global chat with that for a while. And even though I sort of dropped the whole role-play aspect of it, I still think that stones are pretty cool in the game. So I'm just keeping it like that.
Well, I think TempleOfStones is definitely better than Temple of Rats, because I don't think I would go to a Temple of Rats.
Yeah, you gotta read your audience as well, like, whereas it was probably okay in Titan Conquest to be a little edgy, like a lot of players, especially the more competitive ones, were sort of edgelords. The farm RPGs in comparison really friendly, and I know we throw around this term family friendly quite a lot, but like, we don't really even tolerate pet names that have like curse words or something in it. So I think it was much better tone match as well.
I would agree with that, and I think the fact that like the abbreviation is TOS as staff is hilarious.
It confuses everybody. Everyone's complaining all the time.
What is this note from TOS? What terms of service are we talking about? I only know a code of conduct.
Could be kind of interesting.
Do you though? Let's not do a quiz though. Like, do you know your code of conduct? I would probably fail horribly.
Well, besides Farm RPG, what other games do you play?
Well, I'm a little bit of a boomer computer player or a gamer at this point. I've been playing for so many years, I probably stopped counting at this point. I remember the first game I ever played, it was my dad, in post-communist Czechoslovakia. He was like one of the very first IT guys in what we understand under the word today, back when I was still living in Prague. And he basically had like a laptop, and I remember his laptop was just black and white, which is absolutely crazy from today's perspective, because that's not really technology that you would imagine existing at any point. It was like this blind evolutionary path. But I remember he was just like just sort of playing around with it, and he had a bunch of games installed, and just took his laptop, and there was this game. I don't know if you guys know it, Prince of Persia. It's like in MS-DOS, very basic. Yeah, it's just basically you're jumping around and sometimes fighting a little bit with your sword. And I was totally captivated. And ever since, I was just yelling and yelling for my dad to get me more games, and eventually got a normal computer, and it started going downhill from there. When I was a kid, I was really into, let's say, shooters, but like 3D shooters, like Wolfenstein 3D or Doom or stuff like that. Nowadays the whole genre's kind of taken a sideline, because it's not that much. It's about different things now. It's mostly multiplayer, and I don't really like playing multiplayer shooters. It stresses me out. I like playing shooters by myself, but Doom is definitely out there. I guess that's my favorite games of all times. Is the Doom from '94. That's the only game I ever got any merchandise for, and I even have on my left arm, I have one of the cheat codes tattooed on my left arm.
Which one though?
The full key is ammo. ID KFA.
That's pretty cool.
It's considering that I work in an IT company, that's sort of probably more accepted. If I try to explain this to, I don't know, my wife or her friends, they're looking at me like, what's wrong with you? But it's just a really fun thing, and it's really interesting and inspiring to me that a game that was basically new more than 20 years ago still has an active community. People are still making mods for it. People are still doing speedruns for it, and it's really cool to see that such an old thing can still have a life. I think it speaks volumes about the quality and longevity of such a thing. But apart from that, I'm like one of the people, if you ask them what kind of music do you listen to, and they tell you, oh, I listen to everything. I'm kind of like that. I also enjoy strategy games. Mostly, this is kind of an old dead genre now, but Command and Conquer and StarCraft, and most recently RimWorld, just managing things, sending things around, collecting, building, that kind of thing. And I guess the last really sort of popular genre that I have is procedurally generated stuff. So the first one that I ever played, and it really sort of blew me away, was Diablo 2. Which is an RPG, pretty classic, but it was sort of totally brand new at that point in time when it was released, that every time you play, the levels are different. And I think it tests your skill differently if you don't know what exactly is waiting for you around the corner. So in that sense, stuff like Binding of Isaac and Spelunky, those are games that I have probably over 500 hours of playtime. Because it's every time you start, it's different, and that's something that's sort of interesting to me. And of course, last but not least, incremental games. It's more of like a relaxing thing. But I can tell you, and I think that you guys and our listeners probably also know, that it's not exactly easy finding sort of good ones out there. Like usually when it comes to how it goes for me, I install something, good reviews, nice graphics, whatever. You play for the first few levels, and then it starts sort of paywalling you, right? Oh, hey, you gotta wait for an hour, or your energy's empty, or something like that. And it's super rare for me to find a game where you can just have fun as you want on your tempo, on your terms. So that's why I really resonate with FS's games. Sure, you can donate for some goodies, maybe some additional stuff or better functionality, but at the end of the game you can totally play for free, and that's super rare.
And there's no ads too, because I know, like,
Yeah, totally.
I like to play, like on my phone, I like to do like those hidden room games, and like the ad walls are almost worse than the paywalls sometimes because it's like every 30 seconds.
Yeah, totally.
Back to Doom though, have you seen all of those memes of like, can it run Doom, or like people setting up Doom to play on like these outrageous things? Like I saw somebody did it on like a Tesla once. Like rate myself.
For real?
Like on like their little smart screen. Somebody got it on like a graphing calculator once, I've seen.
This is kind of a hobby of mine because I think it's I don't know where it came from. I guess because it was such a big thing back then that all the consoles were trying to also program so they can run it, and sometimes it was really horribly looking or extremely slow, and then it sort of just like went into all these crazy off brands like calculators. I've seen it. I watched a YouTube video. It's nothing like the game, but it's still impressive as a feat that this is possible. I remember I was really into it when I was a teenager. I could have been maybe like 15, and I had a phone. It was one of the, like, let's say, first smartphones to really exist. It was a Nokia 6630. We used to call it the Snowman because it had like this fat lower body, but the upper body and the display were like completely straight. It's a monstrosity in today's terms, but I remember back then there was already like an emulator, and I was just playing on my phone in the vertical mode. I was just tapping the buttons of the keypad, and I beat it on the hardest difficulty. So there's really no limit of what really can run Doom, but I would totally have a look at the Tesla. It sounds super interesting.
Yeah, no, there were like a bunch. I'm trying to pull up like an article now. There's a Reddit thread.
My favorite one was the comic where the computer scientist says, "This alien computer has an architectural engine foreign to ours. We have much to learn from it, and we may have much to fear." And then the computer engineer pops up. Bam! I got Doom to run on this thing.
Somebody got it on a 2012 Nook. I don't know what that is. It looks like a little touchscreen thing. Somebody got it to run on their television.
How do you even control that, with the remote?
Yeah, with their like remote with like the arrow buttons.
Thanks. Now I know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Somebody got it to
It may
run
not run
on
it well, but it'll run.
On their Canon EOS camera.
Are you for real?
Oh my gosh! I'll link. It's a whole subreddit, and it's just r/it runs Doom. Somebody got it to run on a price scanner. Like that they use it like the grocery store.
Imagine you're having a slow day at your job as a cashier, so you just whip out your scanner and start playing Doom.
Somebody got it to run on an oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope.
I don't even know I don't even know what that is.
Well, I sell them.
Well, then you know what it
my
is.
job, so I know what it is.
Someone got it to run on there.
Yeah, I'm an apps engineer for a company that does electronic test equipment, so I have one in my office.
I think that's a really good sales pitch. So ours can run Doom.
Most of them are just Windows computers nowadays. That's not much to brag about.
I don't know what a T16 is, but it looks like it's a controller for like a drone, and it has a little screen. Somebody got it to run on there too. Oh my gosh. Minecraft can run Doom.
Well, besides all of the interesting things that you could potentially run Doom on, what's one thing that you wish the Farm RPG community knew?
Yeah, I actually had this week. I had a really interesting discussion. It was probably late night in America, so European time, about the morning, and there was this discussion about the daily chores, right, that got recently released. And I remember one player was sort of like complaining about, oh no, I have to fish 20 times manually. And I was looking at it, and I just had this boiling anger in me. And this really ties to the discussion we were having before about sort of like all of us getting more and more spoiled over time, because I remember that back when runestones got first released, there were no pets, there were no nets. If you wanted a runestone, you had to get ready to fish about, manually like 3,000 or so times to get a runestone. And I was remembering like sort of like a boomer, how it was back then, and I was really trying to control myself not to say anything mean. But I guess that looking back at all this, how it was before, it's probably sort of important to keep it in mind that even though this game is so much fun, and we all know that because we stick around, right? It's still just developed by one guy. At the end of the day, there's us, the Santa's helpers in a sense, but it's all making progress in a way that if you look at any other games, to be honest, you don't really see updates so often, while at the same time just being programmed by a single guy, right? Like, think of how long the player base had to wait for Cyberpunk updates. It's basically still ongoing and not much to show for. But like, if you have some kind of grievance or you think something's not good, the likelihood is the developer already knows, FS is already aware of that, and he's working as much as he can to make it better. So just stay calm. It's going to get better. It's always been getting better. Just relax. And of course, if there's like a part of game you just downright not like me, for example, I hate manual fishing. I avoid it wherever possible, always have. I got my 10,000 achievement, and that's when I completely stopped fishing manually. That's cool. There's not really any competition. You don't have to do what you don't feel comfortable doing. If there's something that's really frustrating you or making you mad, you don't have to complete all the quests. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to have 100 grandmasteries. Just play at the pace and the way that is fun for you. Make the game work for you. Make it fun for you. And don't stress about it. It's just a relaxing little game. That's it.
Yeah, I would agree to that a lot. Because, I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but you don't have to do all of those things. And, like, I know it's usually, like, in spoilers chat where people tend to be a little more competitive there. I don't really know why. I guess it's because it's more the late game players. But, like, if one person doesn't like doing something, they don't have to.
Yeah, but the thing is about the competition in this game, and this is really interesting, is that there's no leaderboards, right? If you want to compete someone, even mentally, you actively have to click on their profile and read through to find out if they are quote unquote further than you are. So you can also just like mentally tune that out and stop looking at other people's profiles, and you'll just be happier that way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because, I mean, the only thing I can even remotely see there being like competition for, quote unquote, would be something like item mastery. But even then, because I've talked about it before, I talk with a lot of the really hardcore mastery players, and it's not a competition. Like, if there is a competition, it's friendly, and we all help each other out. Nobody's like, haha, I beat you to whatever, because we're all working on it on our own, and it's more friendly than that. It's not.
Yeah, totally.
You don't get something cool for being first to whatever.
I think it's a really important aspect of why I personally log on every day and basically volunteer, because that's what being staff is you volunteer your time, your energy, your ideas to make the community sort of keep going, maybe improve it a little bit. And this is definitely probably the leading factor. I think Milky said it before. I think Seth as well. So I can only basically sign the same idea. Without such a helpful community, people who sort of look out for each other, answer each other's questions, don't point fingers and laugh at each other, instead really try their best to get the community as a whole forward, that's ultimately the reason why I stick around. And I think that's the same reason why we had like dozens of applicants for the last staff application the last time around. It's just a nice place to hang around.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, I think I've said it before, but the fact that it's a single player game but it's not, is just like such a cool concept. Like I've never even considered that something like that would ever exist. And here it is.
It could totally do without the chat too, theoretically. I don't know if this is allowed to do quote unquote advertising here, but one game that Farm RPG got compared to in the past a little bit was Melvor Idol. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't know if it's an actual word or just a name.
That's how I say it.
But the thing is, it works sort of similar, that you have activities, you pick up XP and you get an inventory, but there is no chat and there's no moderation. And that is like a pure single player. But at the end of the day, that sort of makes it less attractive long term because there's just not much reason to hang around.
Yeah, and because like I know, especially for earlier game players, once you run out of stamina or if you have a question or if you're confused about something, I think they have a pretty active Discord to my understanding as well. But
no, they send you to the wiki basically. Sort of like we send people to the library.
Yeah, but at least it's different here because we keep up. Like I tried to find something on the Melvor Idol wiki a couple months ago because I couldn't remember how to activate the Slayer quests or something. I could not find it because I hadn't played. And eventually I think I just wound up messaging somebody on Discord and they told me. But that was, you had to go to a whole separate app and, hope that somebody was going to answer you. Whereas here, you can just go pretty much all of the chats always have people talking. So, and it's in app. So whether you're on phone or on your computer or on your tablet, like if you have a question, it'll get answered.
Yeah, that's right.
Or if you just want to talk like about the game or generally, hey, I had a really good day today. Yay. People will be like, yay. I got a promotion. Yay.
Yeah, everyone's happy with you. I even send you some orange juice
to
celebrate.
Do that a lot. Like I'll go in, I lurk in the chats more than I talk in them lately. But if somebody's in, help or global or spoilers just saying, oh man, like how do I get this runestone or, I need how many honey? Honey I can't really help, but like other stuff, like I'll just send them like a box full of stamina or nets just to, push them along.
Yeah, don't feel sad. Here's some stamina.
Yeah. Or if somebody does something really cool, I'll do the same thing. Like if they escaped corn jail for the time being.
I never miss the opportunity to write GG into global when someone says, they have some sort of an achievement, regardless of if I've done it months ago. It's like using empathy. I know this, like it takes active effort to actually turn on the chat and write, hey guys, I did this. So these people are probably super proud of themselves, and even like the small achievements matter. So I'm always trying to be like really, let's say, applauding to the people, to the players who are achieving something. And it doesn't have to be like a merit badge or something. It can be like, I got a golden fish. That's just as cool if it's the first time, right?
Just don't post it in all caps or we'll squash it.
Well, but technically the GG is all caps, but it's an emote, so it's okay.
I'm talking about the cheering part, like, hey, I did this.
Yeah, like, and because I see that happen a lot too, where people will do it in all caps, like, I finally found this whatever, and like, it hurts my soul, but like, I have to delete it, but I say, congrats or GG, but please watch the caps. And I always just kind of hope they post it again, not in all caps. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, so on to the next question. Tell us an interesting fact about yourself.
So I was thinking about this a little bit, and I could say a lot of things that could be understood as flexing, so I want to avoid that.
I don't mind flex.
I mean, let's go to something that I find actually interesting. So I said before, I work in an IT company. I'm not an IT guy per se. Actually, I studied management back when I was in the school, but it was difficult getting a job as an immigrant in Germany, sort of in that particular field. So I got hired into IT, and as I was progressing through the quote-unquote corporate ladder, I eventually made it to management. So I'm a process manager right now, and I already got some opportunities to hire people to my team. And I decided that I will be sort of kind of very innovative about that. So like one thing, about our organization and our teams is that like every other guy, probably like 50-50, play video games, right? So when I was hiring for the first time, I was like, all right, I'm really looking forward to when we're talking about like, what are your hobbies? I'm already looking forward, hey, I play League of Legends or something like that. But it never came. It's like, so they were just, oh yeah, I go, I go biking a lot and I play team sports, and there's this like this pasty guy, like this kind of nerdy guy sitting across on at the desk, and I'm like, there's no way this guy's not telling me the truth. So I'm like, do you play any video games? And now since then I made this into like an interview question. When I hired new people, I asked them if they play video games, and it's so fun to see the applicants' face totally light up, and they get so relieved. It's like, oh my gosh, yes. And then I'm like, so what do you play? And it's really interesting for me that I can sort of translate what kind of games they play into sort of qualities that can also help the company or the team. So for example, we have a lot of people who play MMOs, like MMORPGs, mass oh my gosh, what is it called? Mass multiplayer online role-playing games, right? So like World of Warcraft and stuff. And, you tell me that, I'm going to tell you, okay, so you're a team player, right? Organized, coordinated team player. Great, right? Those are corporate skills. We have a guy who's a speedrunner. So obviously resilience, doing the same thing over and over and over. We have one girl who's sort of locally competitively plays Street Fighter. So, that's sort of like
Strategy,
I don't know.
and
Yeah, like working on your skill and optimizing the skill set. So, I mean, what I'm probably trying to say, I'm not really sure if there's any lessons learned, and I don't know if it's a very effective hiring strategy, but it's really a lot of fun sort of allowing people to be who they are, who they want to present themselves as, and not have to put some kind of a mask at work just because they think that like playing video games is something bad. Because I hope and I try myself that about like 30 years after gaming starting being a thing, that people already sort of accept it as a part of life. I mean, my mom plays Match 3 games, so we might as well accept it as a society.
yeah, I think especially, the way that COVID has impacted society and everybody's, kind of been stuck, at home. That's, I feel like a lot more people that had not played games before have started to, in the last few years just because of that. And yeah, I think it, based on somebody's answers, you can really genuinely tell a lot about them. Like if somebody says that they play Call of Duty all day, every day, and nothing else, for me, that's a little bit of a red flag. Just because I've seen, I have a second job at a video game store, and I see how some of those players get, and it's kind of crazy.
Well, I had a boss about a decade ago who would intentionally ask the same kind of thing. He'd want to know what kind of video games they were into. And this was for an engineering type job. And he liked the gamers because they weren't scared to try things and figure out how to put things together and make them work.
Yeah, I think I can only agree with that. I have never really had bad experience. Maybe just once. I remember when I started at this company, I had sort of like this trainer. He was supposed to just like always do everything with me just to make sure I'm onboarded properly. And he was the worst. He would just play Kerbal Space Program and Counter-Strike at work in the office. And he was so notorious. He never got anything done. He was just playing that during the work time. So that's probably where I draw the line for like where it's okay to be a gamer and when not, because you need to still deliver what you're supposed to deliver. But other than that, it's just all super cool people.
That's cool.
Yeah, like as long as you get the job done. Like, at my full-time job, I can't really play very much, but I like Farm RPG because if I'm walking around going to check on my kids, I can just open it up and like tap some nets while I'm walking, and and I can put it down and I'm not going to miss anything.
I think it's really interesting in the way that Farm RPG can be played sort of in a hybrid mode. You can really play just sort of in really short bursts, do some little bit of crafting or check on your crops. And also you can just open it up fully and do something, explore, be active in the chat, read through articles. It really can be both. And that makes it, in my eyes, really, really cool to play, because you just can fill tiny gaps or just like make it your main game for some time.
Well, yeah, so I guess that wraps up the spotlight questions. I guess I do have one more question, I guess, actually, that I just kind of thought of. What is it like being part of the night crew staff? Like, by night crew, for those who may not know, it's, as somebody who does not live in the US, Temple of Stones is somebody who's on at night when we're all asleep. And from what I've heard, it can be a vastly different experience than during the day.
It's really a lot different, and I would say more in a positive way, because the server is loaded quite a bit less. Just if you look at the number of active players, it's probably about a half. So generally the chat gets to chill out a little bit because let's say the players in America are already really tired in the middle of the night, so really mellowed out. They don't really start like some hot topic conversations. Instead, just sort of like chilling out, getting ready to go to sleep. But at the same time, sort of international players don't really have enough of other ones from their same regions or countries to really like start like some kind of a fight about politics or something like that. So it's really just sort of people kind of chilling out most of the time. There's barely any fighting. And that combined with the server load being so low that you basically never get any lag, it makes it sort of a dream to moderate, to be honest.
I love that. Maybe I should switch my sleep schedule and just quit my job and
change your time zone.
Move to Europe. Come on, forget America. We got healthcare and whatnot.
You know what? That is tempting.
All right, let's get off the hot button topic of healthcare. And we'll say thank you, TempleOfStones, for taking some time to come and talk to us. It's fun to get to know you, and I bet the community will appreciate getting to know you better as well.
Yeah, thanks. It's
been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being our terms of service.